Well, some of them might be, there's 6 kids getting ready. So some of them might be families of those.
Yeah, I got them.
Yeah, let me go get them. Go by Steve. Straight, yeah, over there. I got them.
Although I think there's a big group in the back.
Here's one right here.
This will probably be Steve, I guess. Yeah.
You people, I move things around at my mom, just, you know.
If I do hold my pen. Oh, it's over there.
Oh, go out.
Yeah. Ready to go. Everybody all set? Yes, Steve? Sure. Yes.
Yes.
Good evening. I am calling to order the meeting of the school committee business meeting for Monday, February 3rd, 2020. Mrs. Kennedy, would you please call the roll?
Miss Reardon?
Here.
Mr. Cole? Absent. Mr. Manning?
Here.
Mayor Holliday?
Present?
Mr. Hawkeiser?
Here.
Mr. Reardon?
Here.
Mr. Callahan?
Here.
We have a quorum. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Bennett?
Yes. We usually open our meeting with a period of public comment. The process for public comment is to please come up to the end of the table, sign in with your name and address so that we can keep it in the record. Try to keep your comments to 2 minutes or less, and go ahead. Do we have people who have comment tonight?
So I recently heard that the,
Could you tell us your name and your address, please?
my name is Jacoby. I no longer live in Newburyport, but I'm an alumni of Newburyport High School. I attended Newburyport High School and I took part in some of the night classes such as the Real World Design Challenge and the Sailbot class, and I heard that they are being canceled next year due to the change in school start time. This isn't true?
No.
Okay, I just what I heard, and I just feel that these classes are very important.
Everything you read on social media.
No, they are probably being shifted into the school day, or some of them will continue after school. There's no intention or plan to cancel any of those classes.
Any of those classes, really important classes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment.
And please feel free to come up and sign in so you're ready to speak. That would be helpful.
Hi, my name is Lisa Matas, and I live on 9 Washington Street. And I'm here today to speak on behalf of a group of parents regarding the Boosterthon fundraiser that happened in the schools in the last 2 weeks. The first point I'd like to make is the transparency. The Boosterthon is in our school for 2 full weeks this school year, interrupting our children's instructional time. Many parents feel that they have had very little communication about the program, which has been in the school for the last 3 years. They question who's in our school, the sales messages that they are sending home with our children, the unnecessary screen time the company is bringing in to the classroom, and the percentage that is taken. Parents have not been able to make an informed consent on behalf of their child. Additionally, if parents choose to opt their child out of the fun run, the children still have to hear about the fun run multiple times a day for 2 weeks. Second, we feel that this is an exploitive fundraiser, and it clearly violates page 51 of school policy. While the school committee recognizes that fundraising activities have become a part of the school environment at all levels, the committee wishes to ensure that students are not exploited by the process. Parents too. We believe Boosterthon, a for-profit company, exploits very young children with daily sales tactics and then leave with almost 50% of what the children have earned. In 3 years, the Boosterthon walked away with $114,000 of this community's money. And for these reasons and more, we strongly feel that Boosterthon does not belong in our schools and that we can do better than this. We've come up with some solutions, and we ask for the school committee to set maybe parameters for PTO fundraisers with a minimum, like a percentage maximum that could be taken, that the kids are not involved in the fundraisers, that the fundraisers are not in our school, and the fundraisers are based on building community. And the other thing we'd ask is that they take a look into covering costs such as the field trip buses, because this has been on the PTO's plate, and we think that this is what maybe has led to them resorting to a corporate fundraiser. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Those suggestions or solutions, are they in a written form that could be provided to the district?
Yeah.
That would be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. She thinks so well.
Okay, great.
Hi there, my name is Trish Boateng, and I live at 18 Merrill Street. My daughters are Amelia, 7, and Nora, 3. Both are at the Bres. I appreciate the school committee addressing fundraising policies. First, I'd like to say that the PTO does a great job. I very much appreciate all of the time and effort that they give to our students. Their heart is in the right place, and I believe that they are put in an unfair position where essential operating costs, such as buses for field trips and cultural enrichment assemblies, become their burden to bear. That's an enormous amount of pressure, and these essential school costs should not be on the PTO's responsibility. This is the backdrop to how it is that Boosterthon ended up in our schools. A for-profit company should not be allowed to come into our schools, use instructional time to hype kids up to solicit donations, and then leave with 48%, almost half of all the money raised. They do not have our children's best interests in mind. We can and should do better. I ask the school committee to help clearly define fundraising rules that will protect all students. In addition, I implore the school committee to work with the city in fully funding our schools for what our children need. At a minimum, the burden of the PTO needs to be lessened so that the PTO can go back to raising funds for fun extras and not have the massive pressure to raise tens of thousands of dollars for fear kids won't get to go on field trips or won't be exposed to cultural enrichment. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments? Seeing none, we'll close our session of public comment and move on to warrants and minutes. Do we have any warrants?
Yes, we do. I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $7,989.15 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None?
The last warrant. I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $209,335.91 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. We have a set of minutes from 1/21/2020. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Sure, seconds it. Any changes? That is, by the way, Sheila Reardon's second. It's the first time she's seconded something. Well done.
It's more exciting in February this year to favor the second.
Yes.
The second?
The second of the 20th year, the second month.
I was kind of hoping there wasn't any math.
Just palindromes, Bruce.
Yeah, that's right, it is, that's right. It is
Yes,
palindrome.
it is.
Any changes, suggestions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Present.
We now come to our moment of student and staff recognitions, and I will turn it over to the superintendent, the assistant superintendent,
Yeah.
who are gonna, like,
All right.
why don't you guys just do rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah, actually, we'll do our students first, recognition, then our staff member right after. So we're going to be recognizing 8 students, and I'll call up, I think Principal Furlong's out there, and also Jen Gloskin. Is she here? Yeah? If not, no.
She's here.
She's here. We'll have them come up. But I just wanted to just highlight what we're recognizing these students for, and then I don't want to steal Principal Furlong's and Miss Groskin's thunder, but part of, I think, what we've been doing, especially throughout the district, is providing opportunities for student leadership throughout the district and student voice, and coming to the table and really being involved in a lot of our decisions throughout. So I'm really proud of that. But these students are really peer mentors. And these students have volunteered their time to go down and work at the Bresnahan with Karen Caves as one-to-one mentors. These middle school students are working with 2nd and 3rd graders. They also play games, they help with schoolwork, and just really, I can't say enough about the leadership and the role modeling that they do, not only for the students, but I think for all of us as adults, about really giving the time and really making a difference in a positive way. So at this time, I'd like to call up all 8 students. Come on up, and we'll have Principal Furlong and Miss Groskin introduce you and talk about the detail, the work that you've been doing. So we can give them a round of applause as they come up.
Okay, so I think I'm going to start by thanking the teacher standing next to me for just being a visionary leader, a person who is embracing our big idea of really working hard in the middle school, providing opportunities for our students to feel like they are leaders, to help put them in different types of shoes. I had an opportunity to kind of sit with everybody in my office this week as the Daily News interviewed them, and one of the questions we asked them is, do they know now what their teachers' shoes felt like? And I think that's important. As you're in middle school and you're sort of getting a little edgy and maybe a little bit cynical, I don't know, just saying, to understand that the adults who are in your life have maybe a particular role to play, and so they get to go down to the Bresnahan and sometimes play that role a little bit with the crazy kindergartners who are playing tag on recess and trying to figure out what that role might look like. So I wanted to start by thanking Jen Groskin for putting this program together and helping us to expand our boundaries and getting the students to the Bresnahan during the school day. And then I'm going to let her sort of speak towards the students.
All right. So these guys actually come after school and during the school day. So it's a double responsibility that they have for a group of students. But then we've expanded their role during the lunchtime. And we did not know what the lunch situation was going to look like. We didn't quite get our hands around it. And since we've been going in November, they have just become this piece of the Friday experience at the Bresnahan. So they are kind of bummed that there's no lunch on Friday this week. The kids are like, wait, they won't be coming. And their arrival is anticipated by the students as they're literally waiting up at the windows as they ride in on our van. So we make sure to ride in so they can see us. And they actually know their role. So when my colleagues went to go with them last week, they said, no, we're going to go here, we go here, and then we go to lunch, and then we switch. And so now they actually can run their own programming, which is great. And I think the adults in the building have noted how nice it is to see their former students and see their former students in this role. And then the adults outside have also noted how much they appreciate their presence out at recess, not just because they're there and they're playing with the kids, but because they're engaging everyone and kids want to be with them, and then they in turn actually engage with them and they bring them into the fold and make them feel like they're part of something. So we're really grateful to you guys for taking your time to do this.
So we'll just finish with a really special thank you to these young people for showing us really what the Knock Advantage looks like. Let's just start one by one. Colby.
Lila Hanlon. Logan Jones. Ollie Levins. Stan Nelson, not here. Yovo. Jack Sherman couldn't make it. And Beckett.
And if parents want to take some pictures, we'll have the mayor and teachers, we'll team photo if you want to come on up. Yeah, awesome job. I'm very impressed. Very nice.
Log for now?
Guys,
I think so. I think that's part of it.
put you on the subject.
Can you move over here?
Right through the middle. Parents.
I'll take a picture.
Sean, you sent me that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. This is real life.
So we'll look at the school committee first, then we'll look at the parents. Smile.
Can you get everybody?
Yeah. And then we'll take pictures. Look this way, everyone.
Ball is still in your court there, Superintendent.
All right, thank you very much. And at this time, our staff member would like to recognize is Miss Christina Gentili for all of her work for the past 6 years for the Newburyport Public Schools, and really taking over, I think, a department that really, needed some work, let's say. And I think Christina stabilized our special education department. Great team atmosphere, with Dawn Clay and Nancy, the administrative team. And I want to thank her for helping me transition to Newburyport, and there's many teachers and team leaders and everyone. I really appreciate her efforts. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Angela, who worked many years with Christina.
Hi, Christina. Okay, I just wanted to share a little bit. I'm going to stand up so people can hear. We're here to recognize Christina for her 6 years of dedicated service to the Newburyport Public Schools. I asked some of the people that worked closely with her, besides myself, how they would describe Christina. And they replied that she is a humble, supportive team player who's available to brainstorm ideas or provide support at a moment's notice. For any of you who know Christina, you know she's very high energy, and she has the ability to multitask like nobody's business. She also has a law background that was evident in difficult situations. Her approach was always calm, confident, and fair. Christina empowered those she led. She helped cultivate their strengths, develop awareness of their shortcomings, and encourage them to grow. In the time that she was with us in Newburyport, she was instrumental in several things, but to name a few, was the building of special education programs that allowed students to remain in our district and part of their home community, promoting a student-led IEP process, bringing positive behavior intervention and supports PBIS to the district, refining special education processes to better meet regulations, and co-creating a continuum of interventions to meet the needs of our most struggling readers. Thank you, Christina, for the positive impact you had on the students and the staff of the Newburyport Public Schools.
Exactly. Let's get up there too.
Yeah.
And you have a seat.
I will. I'll help you. Oh my God.
And we have next item on our agenda is a report from our Newburyport High School student representative. Take it away, Peter.
Hello, my name is Peter D'Ambrosio, and I am the student representative to the school committee. And I just have a brief report on what the high school has been doing this past month and recently. So first up, our Real World Design Challenge students finished first in the state competition, and they will now have the opportunity to compete nationally in the spring at Washington, D.C. So that's a real big congratulations to Ms. Ledger. Student Council's February meeting will happen tomorrow, and we will focus on community service and the upcoming Spirit Week. And then the theater department will be performing 12th Night in less than a month. The first show will be on Wednesday, February 26th at 7 p.m., Thursday at 7 p.m., and Friday at 3 p.m. The cast will then compete at the Drama Festival on Saturday, February 29th, which will be taking place at Andover High School. This past Friday, the high school's peer trainers, who have received extensive training through the Anti-Defamation League, ran their second lesson with the sophomore and junior classes. During this, the trainers led students in activities to help everyone gain a stronger understanding of the terms bias, prejudice, and stereotype. The main outcome was for students to understand that people are much more complex than what you may see on the surface. Alongside with this peer training session on Friday, students Charlie Grossman and Lindsay Nelson, along with teachers Joe Moran and Dr. Abrams, were interviewed on a local radio show. This interview highlighted the work they are doing with the Anti-Defamation League peer training program as we work to become a no place for hate zone. At Wednesday's Poetry Soup, there will be auditions for this year's Newburyport High School representative in the National Poetry Out Loud contest, and that is going to be held 7 to 8 in room 118. And if you want more information, you can go on poetryoutloud.org. And then a brief update on athletics. So last week, the girls and boys indoor track teams clinched the Cal division by defeating North Reading, so congrats to them. The boys basketball finished first place in the Cal with an 11-1 record, so good job to them. Girls basketball finished third in the Cal with a 7-4 record, so good job to them too. Hockey finished fourth in the Cal, and they had a great season, so we're very proud of them. And so that's really been what the high school's been doing recently. So thank you guys. Thank you.
Great job. The next item on the agenda is a brief presentation and a possible vote on the Galapagos Islands overnight field trip.
Hi everybody, how's it going? My name is Erin Hobbs. I'm here to seek school committee approval for a trip to the Galapagos this spring. We're very excited about that. Joanne had given you guys materials, so you have a summary of our itinerary. It's quite exciting. We have 59 students signed up to go and 10 chaperones. We're going to be flying into Quito, Ecuador for a couple of days, and then heading over to 3 islands in the Galapagos, Santa Cruz, San Cristobal, and Isabela. We will be visiting several sites that include natural reserves, as well as the Darwin Research Center. We should be seeing some Galapagos tortoises as well along our way. It's a very exciting trip, and I'm just here to share that excitement with you. We have a very excited group of students who are thrilled to go. So that's what I got. Do you have any questions?
Have we done this trip before?
Not this one. We have used EF before. Both Aileen McConey and I both use this tour company. They're pretty reliable. They've been in business for over 50 years. They have stations or headquarters all around the globe. They have a pretty responsive team and plan. All of our students will be carrying traveler's insurance as well. We make that mandatory for them. And we do have 10 adults, 2 nurses going with us, and 1 guidance counselor and 7 science teachers.
I think I missed the sign-up sheet for chaperones.
It was a long list. I was getting a lot of emails.
I had a couple of questions. How do you select the students?
They get to self-select. So we are taking sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And so we don't really turn anybody away. We want to take anybody who's curious and excited to travel and learn with us.
And how do you ensure that every family could afford it?
So we had fundraising for students, and we planned it far enough in advance so that if a student were to pay for this by themselves, it would come out to approximately $45, $50 a week. So that's pretty much a part-time job.
Okay. I saw the fundraiser for it.
And yeah, you did some, yeah.
Mr. India.
Having been to the Galapagos, you guys are really in for a treat.
I'm very excited myself.
Quite extraordinary. I'm amazed that you have 59 people going. That's just 59 people.
We got an overwhelming response from the community.
I remember pulling into the island that we were staying at, and you come off the boat and you want to sit down on a bench, but you can't because every bench is covered with seals sitting there downtown on the benches. So that's how it begins. So good luck with it. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? We need to take a vote on this.
Motion to approve the 59 students or more going to the Galapagos Islands.
Do I have a second?
Second. So that's your second.
It's our second. Yeah. In the spirit of the day, we'll give it to you. Good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, great job.
Thank you. Great job.
Please report back.
Yeah, actually, have them prepare a presentation for us.
We'd like to know how it goes, what they learned.
Yes, lots of them.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is Steve Burkham coming up to talk about the capital improvement plan. I don't know, Sean, if you wanted to introduce him or what you want to do.
Yes, Mr. Burkham is in charge of our facilities and does a great job with the custodial staff and buildings, and provided a comprehensive report on the capital plan, and he'll talk through some of those items along with some priorities.
I know you've got this in your packet that was sent out last week, but there's been some minor changes, so
Thank you.
Everybody to follow along with.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Welcome. All right, so you just want me to kind of run through them one at a time and talk through them a little bit? All right, first one on the list is the high school science wing addition and renovation. We're in the process now of putting together a draft statement of interest to send into the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
The mayor is in the process of preparing.
No, I'm waiting for you to send me all your information to put it together.
Okay. Yeah, I've got it almost all gathered up,
Okay, wonderful.
and we'll get that
And
over.
now our deadline is April 10th, correct?
April 8th, actually, yeah.
8th, okay.
Yeah. So that, once that's all put together, it needs to be approved here by the school committee as well as the mayor and the city council. As the mayor mentioned, the deadline is April 8th for that, so we'll be getting that pulled together. I'll have all my stuff pulled together by the end of this week and get it out to you.
Wonderful.
Steve, do you have a sense, if we put a statement of interest in, what's the approximate timeline for the next set of benchmarks for that?
To be honest, I would guess that we probably wouldn't be accepted into their program the first year. I think it typically takes a couple of years from what I'm hearing, and from our experience doing the projects with the Bresnahan School and the middle school renovation. It was actually 3 and 4 years with those. That was sort of the beginning of the MSBA's existence back then, so they're a little more efficient now. So I'd be a little bit surprised if we got accepted in our first year. But I believe that if we are, we would hear sometime towards, I think, the fall, if we're getting into their program, and then we have a series of steps to have to go through. There's a long process of forms that we have to fill out to show that, we know that what their regulations are, what we've got to go through, that the MSBA is sort of driving the bus, and, we've got to follow their regulations all the way through the process. So it's, even once we're in their program, there's probably an 18 to 24 month process of going through those steps and putting together the owner's project manager, design team, the school building committee, and all those other things before we even get to start a feasibility study. So there's quite a few steps.
We're 2 to 4 years out.
I would guess we wouldn't even be talking about construction until 3 or 4 years from now.
If I remember correctly, the city council would have to vote on allocating money for the feasibility study.
That's correct.
Too. It's not just we're in and then we sort of figure out. There has to be an actual fund set aside to complete the feasibility study.
That's correct, and that's a fairly substantial amount of money too.
Yes, I recall from both of the school projects.
Yeah.
Just one more question, Steve. This statement of intent is not a contract. It's not a binding.
No, it's not. No.
It's just kind of
statement of interest. We are interested in you funding, helping us build these. Yeah.
And they will probably send a team out once they decide to accept us into the program. They would probably send a team of their engineers and other folks out to look at what we want to do and look at our existing facilities and decide if they want to participate in this program with us.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Yeah.
I thought at some point there was talk about not doing the 2-story addition, but somehow redoing the way the labs are set up in the first place and make them more efficient that way rather than doing instruction.
There's been a bunch
Or
of
at least it was
different
put forward that someone said, why don't we not build this and do it a different way?
I'm not sure that there's a final decision on what is going to happen. I mean, I think we're putting forward our best conceptual in what we need in the statement of interest, but that can certainly change. We certainly hadn't designed the school, Bresnahan School, for example, at the time we got accepted in, and then we worked with their team on what makes the most sense and what's the most cost efficient for the city.
And that's basically what the feasibility study's for, is to go through the process of looking at the facilities, what we have, what we need, and deciding what's the best way to move forward with the project.
And that, even if they added an additional wing, I would be really surprised if it also didn't require some reorganization and rebuilding of the labs as they currently are.
So we're going to put the NHS roof in the same.
Correct.
Okay, so that's why you have 0 listed here, because it's incorporated
included-
into
it's
the
included
funding
in with the-
for the science
Yeah,
lab.
they don't, the MSBA doesn't want you to do a,
Piecemeal.
yeah, they don't want you to put in for a roof project if you're thinking about doing a larger project down the road, so they wouldn't look at us.
So we were rejected last year, or 2 years ago, because the roof wasn't old enough?
Yeah, I think that was actually 3 years ago.
3 years ago?
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah.
Guys. Yeah, so now the roof is old enough so that it would be considered.
Yeah, the roof is now 25 years old.
Okay.
So we're.
Drink.
Thank you.
So that's basically the first 2 items on the list here. Item number 3 is a familiar one to everybody, I think, the exterior woodwork project at the high school. We've been working on this since 2012, and this phase that we would like to complete this summer is the 4th and final phase of this project. The construction costs are estimated at $115,000 for this phase, and the architecture and engineering costs about $12,000, so it's $127,000 total for this phase. We've got $84,000 in CPA funding already available. So the plan is to get this out to bid by the end of March, hopefully get our bids back in April and see exactly what we need for funding, and then look at sources for filling that gap.
Are you applying for the CPA again?
I can, if you think that would be, the thing with that though is those funds wouldn't be available until the end of the summer, but.
Probably October.
Yeah.
No, you need it sooner than that.
Right. Any questions? Oh, I should just mention that this phase involves the cornices, which are up along the top edge of the auditorium and library wings, the woodwork, and there's like a copper shelf up above there, so there's a lot of copper replacement, woodwork repair, and painting as part of this.
I just want to say, Steve, that I can't thank you enough for your diligence on taking care of the high school. I mean, I don't know if people have taken time to stop and look up and see the amazing restoration of the high school that has happened. It's our showpiece of our community as you come down High Street, and it's magnificent. You did a beautiful job. This will be the final phase.
Thank you, appreciate that, Mary.
You're welcome. I made a point of sending out the pictures to the council during one of my updates. It was just beautiful.
Yeah.
So is this the final phase for that work?
This would be the final phase for that, yeah. So the next project, Project 4, is actually taking that a step further, though, and it's a suggestion to allocate funds every year to maintain what we've fixed now. And what I've kind of put together here is a 5-year plan where we're doing 20% of the building every year, and we just keep going around in a rotation, so that hopefully we don't have to do as extensive a project again, at least not for a long time, on that exterior work if we maintain it between, over the years on a regular basis. Number 5 is a request for some engineering help to help us deal with some issues that we've just not been able to solve at the high school. Some water infiltration problems in a few different areas, some masonry and stone issues, and some HVAC problems. The HVAC equipment is now 18 years old. You know, so some of it's starting to show its age and getting expensive to maintain. Particularly the chillers on the high school that create the cooling for the building, the air conditioning. We spend a lot of time trying to keep those up and running. So that's something that you know, we need to find an option or a way to upgrade those or replace those or something. But I think we need an engineer to come in and tell us what the best route to do with that is. Water infiltration issues include over the main electrical room, we've got water dripping down through what we call the West Terrace. There's planters out on the West Terrace that just have some like juniper bushes in them, and water's now leaking down through those and dripping into the main electrical room. It's not a dangerous situation right now, but it's, you know, you don't really want water dripping into your electrical room. There's another leak in the cafeteria that is coming in where a bunch of walls come together, and we just haven't been able to, either in-house or with contractors, been able to stop that. We've slowed it down from what it used to be, but you know, I think we need a forensic engineer to come in and look at that and give us some ideas on how to fix it. So it's things like that that we've been trying to take care of ourselves but haven't been able to fix, and we're just looking for some additional help with it.
Steve, do you think all these leaks could lead to a bigger problem that we haven't unearthed yet in all those places? Or?
I don't think so. I think it's just a matter of finding the best way to correct whatever the problems are. I don't think it's, you know, there's going to be some cost to whatever the repairs are, but, you know, it's just a matter of probably pulling out some bricks and looking behind things and looking, flashing, and seeing if we can locate what the problems are.
But I always get concerned when I hear water is dripping over electrical boards. And the way this process works, even though you've identified this as a high priority, or second high priority, that it goes to the council in a packet on the 1st. They have to review it by June 1st. Then they have to approve the individual capital plans. So this could take, you know, another 5-6 months before you have funding, and that seems a long time. Mr. Superintendent, do you have $35 or $5,000?
I have $35.
Yes. $35.
I'll give
So
it 40.
we've got the start of a match here, folks.
Right?
I had 35.
Can we talk about this?
Yeah, we can
this
talk.
concerns me.
Yeah.
You know, in
And
terms of safety.
we can pull that piece of it out and just have someone come in and look at that specifically and
then
worry
put
about the other
project
things.
back in once you have the full, but I just need to know it's safe.
Yeah.
That concerns me. Can we do that? Pay for engineering to come in? Okay. All right, and then this piece will be redone after you get the report from the engineer.
Right.
About what you need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent.
Number 6 is the bleachers in the gym at the high school. The plastic portion of those bleachers has just, plastic's very soft, it's bowed, it's warped, it's cracked, it's falling apart, it breaks easily. The structure of the bleachers themselves is fine. We just need to replace the plastic seat portions themselves. I'm told that the newer replacements are made more sturdier with some built-in reinforcement so that they don't do what these have been doing to us. And you know, so it's this one's an urgent one because it's so many people use that gym. A lot of people are in and out of there, and there's a lot of pieces missing and broken and cracked that could be dangerous for people. Number 7 is a request to start putting some funding towards replacing furniture at the high school. Again, it's 18 years old. The classroom chairs in particular, they started breaking about 3 or 4 years after we moved into the school. They were under warranty for 15 years. The company was very good about sending us replacement seats. They even sent out a couple of mechanics at one point with literally hundreds of replacement seats for these chairs and replaced them all. They cracked again. They put little extra reinforcement brackets. They keep cracking. So we've probably replaced the seats on these chairs at least twice on every chair. We found another chair that's similar to these. It works with the desk that we have. We've put in one classroom already. We've got a couple more classrooms worth coming later on this week, actually. But there's somewhere between 1,100 and 1,200 chairs, classroom chairs in the building. So we need some significant funding over the next several years to replace all of those.
Steve, I'm not sure actually when this piece comes in, but in some of the tours of other schools that we've done, I know Brian and I have been in a couple of other schools, we've seen some really interesting and very innovative new furniture that is out there. I just wonder if that can also be part of this conversation, maybe replacing seats with stands, all kinds of stuff like that. Just seen some great stuff in classrooms. Yeah.
I think that's something we definitely look at, flexible seating and some of those furniture options that we saw at some of the schools.
Standing desks, things like that.
Yeah, certainly, if that's direction that this committee and the administration and staff want to look at, then, we don't necessarily have to go, strictly with, a one-for-one replacement or, a like replacement.
Yeah, if we're going to be moving in that direction, I'd love for us to look at some other things as well. Great, thank you.
Number 8 is an energy reduction project that I've been working on with the city's energy, what's Molly's title? Energy
and Sustainability Coordinator.
Yeah, her. Molly Edinburgh. This project would add some controls to some of our circulator pumps, some controls to our ventilation system so that they're not running at times when they don't need to run. When, for example, if a room empties out, you don't necessarily need the ventilation running, even though it might be scheduled to run, but in the middle of the day, that room might empty out and things could shut down and save little bits of energy here and there. And also, this would be the first phase of 3 phases to replace all of the lighting in the building with LEDs. Total cost of this project is about $237,000. We're applying for a Green Communities grant of about $193,000. There'd be about $33,000 in rebates from National Grid, and the city has to put up a small portion of it, of $10,000, I guess, as part of the grant language. So I think the Green Communities grant goes in by the end of March.
It's pretty soon.
Yeah, and we hear back, I think, in June. So hopefully, if all goes well, we would have the funds to be able to do this this summer.
Have you changed on any of it? I thought you had done some of the lighting.
We've done some lighting.
I thought you had.
Yeah.
Okay. How much,
Yeah.
could you say?
We've done some of the big areas, like the auditorium, the gym, the part of the cafeteria, and then some miscellaneous stairways have been done. So this is mostly hallways and classrooms.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, are people looking at the types of lighting that are good for kids, like sitting in and reading and all day?
Well, I think the LEDs are generally thought of as being superior to fluorescents because you don't get the same kind of high-pitched humming noise in those. The other thing we can look at too is the color rendering index of the lights. You kind of want a nice, bright, clear light so that it's good to read underneath, but you don't want it so light that it's blinding. So, yeah, we can look at that. Number 9 is a request for a pickup truck We have 4 maintenance guys on our staff and 3 pickup trucks, or 3 maintenance vehicles. So sometimes we run into issues where we've got guys going 4 different directions, but we've only got 3 vehicles to send them. It's not always a problem. We generally find a way to work it, but there's just times where it would be helpful for that to have a 4th vehicle. But in addition to that, one of our vehicles is a 10-year-old pickup truck that we've been plowing with since we got it. We plow the Bresnahan lot now. We took that over last year from DPS, and that 10-year-old vehicle's getting to be a little bit problematic. We've had some issues with the plow. We had to have a good portion of the front end rebuilt last year, and I think that we're not going to be able to plow with that older truck too much longer because of the wear and tear on it from plowing for 10 years. So we're looking to...
Do you use the mechanics down at DPS?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So that's the pickup truck.
I have a question. It's more toward the school committee, I think. I just wondered, is Fuller Field, Cashman Park, and Pepe Field part of the schools? Are they owned by the schools, or are they owned by the city?
Everything is owned by the city.
Okay, I know that. But the schools are maintaining them and not the
Those,
city?
can I answer that?
Yes.
Parks Department is taking over Fuller Field this year. Parks Department also has been doing Cashman, and I think are taking over Pepe Field this year too. That was Pioneer League. The Pioneer League always took care of that. But the high school teams use those fields, and so we will be doing game prep work on those fields, like lining them, raking, grading the infields, mowing at times if Parks can't mow it before a game and the grass is too high in the infield for a softball game or whatever, we may do some mowing on some of those fields. So it's kind of a partnership that we've got to work out with Parks. They will be doing the main mowing and maintaining of those fields, but we'll be doing game preparation work on them.
Can I just ask, because it was last year, you got like a new front end loader?
We got a tractor.
Tractor, yeah.
Yeah.
How's that working out?
That's good. We also use that for plowing up at Bresnahan.
Okay.
That's been very helpful because we have a bucket on it that we can use to move snowbanks around with.
Yeah, I guess that's why I'm thinking front end loader.
That we don't. So we've been able to do some stuff ourselves that we used to have to get DPS to come in. We're kind of slowly trying to build so that we're a little bit more independent and we don't have to do so much with that.
This new truck would kind of help complement all that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. As with this next piece of equipment is the Toro Groundsmaster 3500 lawnmower. This is a lawnmower that's designed for mainly specifically for golf courses and athletic fields. It's got a 72-inch cutting width, and it's got 3 separate floating mower decks. So it's very maneuverable, it's very quick and efficient. It's got that 72-inch wide swath, so it would, all those things together would allow us to mow our fields about at least 20% faster than what we can now. In fact, talking to our new grounds person and the rest of our maintenance crew, since, as I mentioned, the Parks Department is taking over maintaining Fuller Field this year. We're very confident that if we were able to purchase this mower, we would be able to take over all of the mowing chores at the middle school. Currently, DPS does all the lawn areas. We do the athletic fields. But DPS comes in and does the lawns out front and around the playgrounds for us. But we feel that if we had this, we'd be efficient enough that we could relieve them of those duties.
Question.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one of these vehicles as your, because you put everything as for FY21, and there's not a tremendous amount of free cash this year to do capital. So if you had to pick the one of these vehicles, which one would you prioritize?
Can I get back to you on that? I'd like to talk to my staff about that.
That was slick.
I like the lawnmower.
I do too.
Just ride that one up to the grass.
Number 11 is, we've been working on repaving walkways around the middle, the Knock and Mower for quite a while now. We've got almost all of them. This one we're looking for to do the sidewalk in from Johnson Street up by the skate park. And that might be the last one that we haven't done recently.
People looking for better access to the skate park.
What's that?
Better access. You can do that for $15,000 from Johnson to the skate park?
I think so.
Would you take over some sidewalk work in the city, please?
Number 12, this is one of the things that changed from the last, from the packet that got sent out to you last week. I was made aware that there is a group, community group that has formed that is interested in kind of spearheading a push to renovate the tennis courts at the middle school. And so I won't go into this too deep. I'll let them, they're on your agenda for next. So I'll let them explain what they've got in mind. But I did make contact with them last week, and you know, I will certainly help to support whatever initiatives they want to put forward to make this happen. It's a more ambitious project than what I had originally been thinking. I was just looking at resurfacing, but they're looking at expanding because they don't, the current courts don't have regulation clearances around them, so they're actually rotating the courts and rebuilding everything from the ground up, pretty much. But I'll let them explain that a little bit more. Number 13 is knock and mow and furniture replacement. We've done little bits and pieces of this over the past few years. There's still some old stuff in the building, classroom desks, some tables here and there. So that's just sort of an ongoing thing. Number 14, this one we've been talking about for a while is kind of being out there but not being very urgent. The replacement of the roofs on the gym and auditorium at the middle school. I think that we're getting closer. They're still fine, but they are 25 years old. I think that probably next year might be a good time to put in a statement of interest to the MSBA to let them know that you know, we've got this project coming up. Because again, I think that it'll take a couple of years of putting in statement of interest to get them to put us onto their program.
Steve, what part of the roof did we do with the renovation?
What part?
Didn't we do a section of the?
We did, yes, we did. It was actually about 75,000 square feet over.
Most of the classrooms, we just didn't do the auditorium and the gym.
Right, yeah, the two-story building we had done several years ago prior to the renovation. But the area over like the cafeteria, the library, the offices, the 6th grade classes, and the superintendent's office, we did as part of the renovation project.
Thank you.
But we didn't need to do the gym and auditorium at that time.
And the science labs, was that in like 2007?
Somewhere around there, Steve, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we did that at the same time we were renovating the science labs, that roof. High school carpet replacement. Again, it's 18 years old. It's showing wear in places. It's not horrible yet, but I just wanted to have it on here as something to keep in mind, to be thinking about as
We
we.
definitely want carpet, not some type of other flooring or.
Well, I think we can look at that on a space-by-space basis and, you know, how those spaces are being used.
I'm just not using some of the, even the carpet squares or the tile squares. When pieces get worn, it's easy to replace it as
Yeah.
opposed to
Mhm.
having to replace the
Yeah,
entire.
absolutely.
Yeah, so we're
Absolutely.
doing more of that at City Hall and other places, but.
Yeah, but there are some areas that are carpeted that, the way we're using them now, would make more sense to have tile in them too.
Okay.
Yeah. Number 16 is a suggestion to add vestibules into the ground floor hallway at the high school. If you've ever gone up there for a basketball game or something in the, you know, a cold December night, someone opens a door at either end of that hallway, and it's like a wind tunnel, air just gets sucked right into that hallway. So the thinking is that a vestibule at each end of that hallway would help to cut down that air infiltration and make some improvements in the heating costs for that area and just general comfort. And the final one is auditorium plaster repairs, mostly on the ceilings, some on the walls in the auditorium at the high school, but that wouldn't be really made a priority until after we replace that roof. So that's it. Any other questions?
I have a question, really. I guess it's for Sean, though. The furniture replacement, it's a high priority, so not like right now, but kind of soon. If we're thinking about doing something different, do you think you could find some people interested in doing the research on that? So that if, say, hypothetically, some money were to become available at some time in the year that's too late to use for staffing but could benefit the schools, maybe that's something we could always have in our pocket.
Sure. That's a good idea. Yeah, well, look, I mean, we have people looking at different, especially with the flexible seating and the flexible classroom, but we could definitely have people start looking at furniture, what best fits the needs. So we have something to go to.
Or lawnmowers.
I'm betting there's a couple of wish lists out there already. But yeah, that's a good idea.
I would like to ask what the will of the school committee is, because we do need to approve this to the vote. Would you like to wait till our next meeting to be able to review it a little more closely, maybe even go and look at things if you want to? It's totally up to the school committee if you want another couple weeks to think about the items that are here.
Clarification, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I'd like to wait. That's just my feeling. Just give us a little bit more chance to kind of.
What we voted, we were willing to approve the way
You're
these are being
approving.
ordered?
No, all you're doing is approving the capital plan for its submission into the master 5-year capital plan that is required by the charter to be submitted to the school committee by April 1st. So that's all it is.
Yeah.
You know, you're not actually approving the funding for any of this, because I'm not sure how much funding we have for any of this.
Sean's got $35.
I'm matching it.
Supposedly.
That's
We didn't see it.
There's seven.
Well, we just give them a raise, maybe we
So
could
it sounds
toss
like
some of
we'll
that.
wait 2 weeks for our next meeting to be able to just give everybody a chance to sort of digest this and think about it before we vote, okay?
Steve, is there anything on your timeline that?
No,
should
the only
wait?
thing I would bring up is that the email that I got from Ethan was that we were supposed to send it back to him by February 7th, but obviously if you're okay with going beyond that, then I'm okay with going beyond that.
Well, it's only 2 weeks. So, I mean, we want them in because we have to vet them, and we have a lot from all the departments.
3 weeks because of vacation.
Vacation. So we meet on the 25th, which is the next meeting.
That's kind of late.
I mean, and while I personally could always digest this, Steve knows more about this than I do, so if you're saying that this is the way things should roll, I have no basis on which to question any of this.
And there's plenty of several layers of review of this too.
Yeah.
All right, so then.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak to try to hold off for 3 weeks?
It's long.
And do I have a motion to approve as submitted the capital improvement plan?
So moved.
Second? Second. Sheila is a quiet second.
Reed,
Her third second. She's on fire tonight. Any discussion further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
1 nay. 6 in favor. To be submitted.
So who's the nay, Helen?
Sure.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate the updates.
We're going to be getting a presentation now from the tennis court group, Friends of the Knock Tennis Court. Do you want to introduce them, Brian?
I'm not sure who's there. Greg Lynch. Who else? Jamie. Oh, Jamie. These people too. Rosemary Turgeon.
I think you have one of these.
I do, yeah, but I'll.
Thank you.
There's a bigger package of Greg.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank
The
you.
one sheet that shows
Thank you.
the layout of the Mount Mower test.
Sign up?
You guys can share it. No, it is. That's our last one.
Thank you. You ready?
Yep. So as Steve mentioned, we're part of a group of volunteers that want to help reconstruct the Knock Middle School tennis courts. I know this, with your permission, I know this has been discussed in the past and for whatever reason hasn't, it's not a priority. So that's where we want to help. We want to kind of rally the community and fill any fundraising gaps to just get it done. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why. It's an eyesore. It's not configured properly. The high school team is excellent. It needs more courts. Jamie can talk to that too. And we know it can be done. So I spoke with Chris Huntress, who I know some of you are familiar with. He drew up the plans. So right now it's 108 by 108. It's supposed to be 108 by 120 for 2 courts. So if we rotate them 90 degrees and move one of the fences back towards the school, we can get 108 by 120. So it can be done. We'd have to move the shed. It's not inexpensive. Someone's got a quote. So, and the reason it's better to do post-tension concrete than to do asphalt. Asphalt will crack. Post-tension concrete lasts for 25 years. It's warranted. If we're going to do it, we might as well do it right, in my opinion. So we just kind of want to know how to navigate the whole process. It's school property. I'm sure there's some funds available. I'm not sure if the CPC funds or the NEF or the city, however that whole public bidding process works. We're unfamiliar with that, but there's definitely a lot of energy behind it. There's community energy behind it. So for what it's worth, if that's a criterion, people want to get it done. I'm sure everybody wants to get it done. We want to help. We're here to help, and we just would appreciate any guidance and your permission to move forward and tackle this thing and just complete it.
Yeah, as we all know, those courts have been sitting there for the last at least 15 to 20 years, not even being used, no nets up. And the tennis team has 3 courts to play on when there's 5 matches to play. And, the fact that, they were built to just concrete and they're just all cracked now. And all the other courts, to look at the bigger picture, all the other courts are going to have to get done soon too. But maybe this is a place to start with the ones that are most dilapidated before the other ones also become that way. And, to the point where things absolutely need to be repaired. The upkeep, starting with these 2 courts, and then try to upkeep the Atkinson and then the Cashman courts a little bit, because those are getting really worn out too. And it also might help having 2 tennis courts at the school to help,
Gym class.
you know, get the kids playing more. Right now, they don't have a boys' team. They have an excellent girls' team, and just get more kids playing tennis. And also, you do new tennis courts over now, pickleball lines. Pickleball is so popular now as well. So you could also tie that in.
If we have to.
Community courts. As far as being community courts, obviously, so.
And the Newburyport Youth Services is excited about it as well. There's many benefits.
Yeah, we did also meet with somebody from USTA. Funding from them is unlikely, but they'll be helpful in terms of guidance. And they have programs that they can bring into the school to really help kids get excited about tennis. So if you have the courts there, they will provide instruction to the gym teachers. They'll provide equipment for the children. So there is definitely a lot that could go along with it. It's school property that's otherwise not useful for anything. So we would like to see it turn into something that could benefit the community, the students, and the future of tennis.
Absolutely. And even a backboard if possible. I mean, I don't want to get too greedy, but there's no backboard in town, and that's a nice thing to have for, that's kind of how this whole thing started. People were having a conversation, and there's no backboard, and so.
Sorry, backboard, like play by yourself against.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So anyway, we don't know where to go from
Yeah,
here.
we're
So
asking
we're
for
looking
your guidance.
Where do we go from here?
Yeah, so Craig got a quote there, but like, now we want to look at.
That's those guys are like probably the most expensive, I would guess, but there's not a lot of companies that do the post-tension concrete. So I don't know if it's going to be that much. I don't know if it's going to be more than that. And that does not include site work to excavate and tear up what's already there. So that's another probably $25,000 to $35,000.
But that's something we might be able to do internally, I don't know. You
Right,
know,
we're about
yes,
to see
we
this
could
nice
put that
truck
up.
that'll just.
Yeah, where's that?
Truck and loader.
I'll go with tractor.
So what I think is that we have to give permission for the expansion, right? Like with the skate park.
We have to give
boat.
permission to fundraise for this project.
Right,
Because
but-
we did approve it in the capital plan, so I think in general, it's something that clearly needs to happen. I would just like to say that if we move as a community in this direction, I need a commitment from the schools that they will never, ever, ever let people park on it.
Oh, yes.
When we were renovating the
How did we
high
get in there?
school. When we were renovating the high school.
They took the fence, when they were doing the high school.
They took the fence down and all the high school students parked on the tennis court.
All of them?
That was the beginning of the.
So-
Like 3 cars in there?
No, there was probably 40,
Wow. On a tennis court?
yes.
We all agree with no parking.
Yeah,
No parking
Sean,
on-
you had a question?
No, I don't have a question. I just say, I love this idea. You know, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 courts total in town, counting
Yeah.
Cashman and Perkins. So I grew up obviously playing on those courts. The gym classes used to use those all the time. We had tennis serve as part of our field day ribbons. I was a 2-time ribbon recipient. But I'm also a former tennis cap at AHS, so we used to use that for our JV games back in the day. So, you know, there was a time those were used quite a bit.
Yeah.
So it is sad what's become of them, so I think it's great if we could, you know, utilize that. We have a huge number of girls playing right now, but from what I hear, hopefully we're gonna have boys tennis coming back, you know, within the next year or so, because I think we're gonna have some numbers that we can justify a team.
And
So-
also with new ownership of the racket club, you know, you see a lot more tennis
more
programs
tennis
going
programs,
there, a
yeah.
lot more kids playing. So, you know, but, you know, it gets expensive to play inside. So having more access to outdoor courts is huge. So keep more people playing.
Yeah, I don't have a question so much about supporting this. I'm just trying, in my head, when I was looking at the possible funding sources, I'm just trying to figure out what entity would apply for the CPA grant. Who would?
It would have to be parks and.
Parks.
But
Could youth services too be part of that?
they don't have any ownership of that.
Yeah.
So,
Probably would be.
but there are a tremendous amount of grants going into the CPA this year. So it might be best if we just sort of organize, work with parks, confirm the design, sort of come up with fundraising strategies, and then, get everything together, and then be able to take care of a few other higher priority parks things this year. Because we're looking at Bartlett, we're looking at, there are some other needs, and then we can look at putting in, because our Parks Director was saying, well, what if we put in some seed money? I don't think it's gonna help you really, a little bit of seed money, I don't know. And you'd have to wait till October for it anyway, so that's like 9 months.
That's what all the stuff we don't know. Lisa, Reed?
Yeah.
She's been great, I talked to her about it.
Yeah, no, she's been wanting to upgrade. I think we did a little bit of work at Atkinson. Yeah, yeah, and we talked about it, and there's like 5. We kind of finished the rail trail, that piece. So I think that if you can organize, the council approves the plan going forward for the capital plan, and then, a full CPA grant, not just for some seed money, but maybe for 50% of it next year. And in the meantime, you do some fundraising, and, we've done fairly well with, we've done Show Your Sport and some other, events, so we can sort of put our head around how we can raise some funds to at least get you started to get maybe some design work done.
Awesome.
And I think for all intents and purposes, we've already approved this, and at least approved it being part of the capital plan. This is the way that it's going to get done, working with this.
Right. Do you have a name? Your group?
The Friends of the
I made it up, non-tennis courts.
So it's not registered, right? But I bet it has a logo.
But please don't let it be fonts again. We got Friends of Newburyport, Friends of Newburyport Trees, Friends of.
They're an official nonprofit.
Right.
No, we didn't really have that intention of becoming like.
You don't have to. You don't have to. I mean, we have a 501c3 through the parks, so that they can certainly take some of your fundraising. But those are all these kinds of particulars you have to work out, before, in terms of working with Lisa. And I think what our vote tonight should be to support the community fundraising efforts to raise funds to upgrade our tennis courts, and I make that motion.
I have a question, Mayor. Isn't there a thing through Lisa that, like a branch of that 501c where they can give their fundraising money and it is earmarked only for a specific project, right?
Yes, yes.
So you wouldn't have to get a bank account and everything, you just give the money
to the Conservancy and just make sure the memo check people write, knockball and tennis. Yeah, so I mean, that's good.
We have a motion on the floor to support the effort of this group.
Sheila?
Do we have a second?
You want to do it again? A hat trick?
Go ahead, go for it, Sheila.
That would have been 5.
Maybe she doesn't want to.
Motion was the mayor.
I'll second it. I think Sheila's anti-tennis, she's not.
You can't be saying stuff like that. But we do have a second here. Any discussion? No discussion other than good luck and thank you for stepping up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
What was the actual wording of the motion?
To support the efforts of the community.
Oh, my dad was coach
Community volunteers to raise funds to renovate the tennis court at Knockball.
I heard her say all that.
Okay, next item on the agenda is draft calendars. This is a first reading. I turn it over to the superintendent.
Sure. We provided 2 calendars, very similar to this year. And with Labor Day falling so late in the year, I think it's September 7th, proposal would be to start before Labor Day. What's that?
I just said no.
Just to get the conversation started.
Sure. Yeah, so some of the changes we made this year, I think were pretty positive. Especially with the professional development in the beginning of the year, I think. So when the teachers came back, then we had the professional development. I think it assisted with the opening of schools. And then teachers really developed like team time and had the opportunity to talk about the students that were in their class and really did a nice job in, I think, opening of schools and preparing. The other idea we had from last year to this year was to move the Fridays away from the vacation. And then we added 2 late starts just to see. We have another one coming up in the second semester. So We provided, the first calendar was very similar to this year, and then I think the only change we added was, instead of having the 2 late starts, have 4 late starts and then 5 early releases. But I wanted to put it out there so we can have a discussion about that.
I like the late starts. I've had a lot of parents tell me they also like them. I've had a handful tell me they don't, but you know. But did you find that there's a lower absentee rate on the late starts than on the early release days?
Yeah, well, we had, from last year to this year, so last year with our, if we all remember the presentation on chronic absenteeism, so before the holidays, before Martin Luther King, we had, this was last year, 161 absenteeisms throughout the district. The February, before February vacation, we had 305 absences before the February vacation. And then, let's see, 300, yep, 305. And then April vacation was 363. So then this year, with moving those, because we're only halfway through the year, on the 9/20 early release, we had 106. On the late start, that was district-wide. On the late start, professional development, we had 84. On the early release on election day was 89. And then another early release on a Friday was 141. So the attendance was beneficial with the delayed opening, but also moving it to the Friday away from the vacations was beneficial too, district-wide.
Do you have the number for Martin Luther King, the Friday before Martin Luther King Day this year? That was attached?
We didn't have, that was a full day. We moved the full day PD that day.
Oh, so we don't have school.
Yeah. So the students didn't have school.
100%.
Yeah, 100% absence.
Gotta switch that.
Right. Yeah, so that, I mean, so that looked promising, and then we pulled out a promising attendance on the focus of chronic absenteeism. I mean, we're halfway through the year, and this is one part of the accountability. So last year, and that's 18 absences or more, and how many students? Just for some examples, so last year for 12th graders, we had 19 students fall into that category. Juniors, we had 14 students fall into that category. Sophomores, we had 10. 9th graders, we had 5. 8th grade last year, we had 14 students. 7th grade was 14. 6th grade was 4. 5th grade was 11. And then the other ones are a lot lower, pre-K and K, 13 and 12. That was all last year. So I just looked at chronic absenteeism, and I really want to credit, I think, the administration, I think the BRIGHT program, I think our guidance counselors, just really a team effort in really identifying chronic absenteeism, working with students and families, and putting checks and balances. And so right here, as in February, so we have, in 12th grade, we have 3 students with chronic absenteeism. In 11th grade, we have 4. 10th grade, we had 1. 9th grade, we have 2. And just for the people that are watching, it's just really a collective effort with a lot of people working with these students and the families for various reasons. 8th grade, we had 2. 7th grade, 1 student. 6th grade, 2. 0 in grade 5. 1 and 4, 0, 3, 0, 2, 1 in grade 1, and 0 in kindergarten, and 0 in pre-K. So that's halfway through the year. That obviously can change with family dynamics and issues, but I think that's promising data for us in really identifying students in need, and then identifying attendance issues and family issues a lot earlier with great support staff. So.
To be fair, though, those kids who haven't yet reached chronically absent could be at current 1 or 2 absences away.
Correct.
Right, so if they're not chronic yet.
Correct.
But
something we look at, though.
Halfway through the year, they could be 9/10 through their attendance.
Right, and it could be, you just don't know. I mean, you know, with family dynamics or a scenario, you know, with students that are anxious and dealing with some mental health issues. But I also want to say the support of school committee with the adjustment counselors, bringing the BRIGHT program in, having the Home for Little Wanderers as part of our networking, the work that Kathy Riccio is doing, supporting families. I think it's been really a collective effort in trying to reduce chronic absenteeism, and then also really important to reaching out to families. So that's just some attendance pieces.
I had a parent ask, what is the, why does the kindergarten start later and end earlier, just in general?
Great question, and Principal Sullivan's back there, but you don't enjoy the viewing. Okay, you don't have to come out. No. Principal Sullivan also met with that parent, so it's really about, I think, the having kindergarten students and preschool along with all the other first grade, second grade, and third grade. I think just 2 days or a 3-day difference, that's kind of what we're looking at for this year, which is always, you know, it all depends on when we start school and where that's going to fall. But I think it's important for the older students to get them up and running. And then I think there's a collective effort, not only among the kindergarten teachers, but also the other teachers, to make sure when the kindergarten students are coming in for the full day, that all hands are on deck, because that's,
is that a
and I think it's probably
to do
more,
that?
yeah, and a lot of districts delay the kindergarten, but it's probably more for the parents, for the kindergarten parents, because for your first child, to send them off to kindergarten can be emotional too.
Do we also do screening at the beginning of the year? Like I know in Malden, our kindergartners came in after the school year started, and we did screening for the first day or two. Do we do that? Do we do that before school starts, Amy?
We do that in June.
In June.
That's why they leave.
Before they
That's why they leave early.
Right, yeah.
Are we taking questions about the calendars?
Sure.
Great. I had a bunch of questions. I sent them to you in advance so we could talk about some of them or all of them. I'm all for getting kids to school. I just want to make sure, because I also believe that disaggregating the half-days from the vacations not only continues to upset the calendar, because we just don't have complete weeks of school. You know, in the high school, especially with the midterm week, and now we have a half day, it's like, but I also think it inconveniences a lot of families. So I want to make sure if we're going to change, because last year when we did this, we changed away from a plan that we had put in place before that, which was putting them together. So I want to make sure that we're actually hitting our mark, right? So we could say attendance got better, but have we actually solved the chronic? Last year with the question, like, are those kids missing the half days before April and February vacation? Are those the kids who are missing 18 days in the year?
I think part of it was some of them.
Because now, like, I'm looking at, you know, the 10th grade has 10 kids who are chronically absent, right? So if we still have 141 kids absent, are those kids going to be absent every half day? And even every half day, that's only 6 absences, right? And that's if they skipped every half day. And so I still think we are making a shift that affects the entire district to possibly, and I don't know if you guys have actually done the data dive to figure this out, to possibly benefit the attendance role for a very small percentage of kids. So, go ahead.
That's not the primary reason you're making this recommendation.
What's that?
The primary, just to try to address these kids. sort of collateral to it.
Correct.
The primary reason we were told last year, so I assume it's full, is to try to address chronic absenteeism.
Chronic absenteeism.
Right, so what I'm saying is that, are we sure that the kids who are chronically absent are going to be affected by even if they miss every half day, that's 6 days.
But I also think it's when you're looking at district-wide, when when you look at daily attendance, that obviously needs to be reported too. For the district, anything that starts to, you're looking at 95% or below is also part of that accountability for daily attendance. So if you're at 90% district-wide for attendance, it's part of that report, like the reporting to the state. Now the state is looking, as we said before, they're analyzing the chronic absenteeism, but it is a measurement that we send in the daily attendance part of the state report.
The number of days in a year at which we fall below 95% overall attendance is something the state's considering?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I still really dislike disrupted weeks. In fact, what I would call chronically disrupted weeks, because if we go back probably till election day, I think we're going to find very few continuous 5-day weeks in our calendars.
Well, and I think when you're looking at professional development, it's also, you know, it's part of the contract also.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that.
Well, I had some ideas for that.
Sure.
It's clear that a lot goes into creating these calendars. I just wondered if you could tell the criteria that you use.
Well,
in addition to chronic absenteeism, is considered.
So I think there's a couple things. So when you're looking at the contract, so there is language in the contract regarding the start of the school before or after Labor Day. And there's language in there that suggests when Labor Day starts on, I think it's the 5th, 6th, or 7th, then superintendent, along with the school committee, can make that determination to start before Labor Day, because then you start tying in, the winter snow days in New England. The days, and this is what we used last year to start before Labor Day, we use that same language, and if it's the 2nd, the 3rd, or the 4th, then you make a determination of starting, after Labor Day. So I think that that's one criteria that we use. The second piece is professional development time for the teachers. And so when you're looking at those 9, as part of my entry plan, talking with a lot of people, looking at 9 early release days and listening to some parents in the sense of, if my child's involved in after-school activities, but they're getting out at noon, but daycare or YMCA or any Egmont's programs, they start at, typically at 3, so everyone's shuffling to meet that accommodation. So when I heard that, one of the ideas that we had was if you have a late start, for some working parents, it's a lot easier for them to go into work late and then go throughout the day, and then the daycare, the after-school programming, and those type of activities haven't been impacted. So what we tried to do this year was to kind of pilot, we have 9 half-days and 9 early release. Could we move some of them to the morning to accommodate, some of those families, and also, the downtown too. There's, when the kids have really nothing to do at noon, and they're old enough where they don't necessarily have to go home. They're downtown, waiting around.
Waiting online at Lexington, yeah.
But so we listened to all that, and last year I gave our wonderful school committee a couple versions. I think last year we had several. So I figured we'll start with a couple versions this time. But those are all the things that kind of go into that. And then you really look at the staffing and the PD and the opportunities for the collaboration. So I think going back to School Committee Hawkeyes' idea of, you know, can we look at this time, can we look at these half a days, and then, you know, see what we can do down the road to, you know, can we add, you know, take maybe a full day or 2 half days, make them full. But that would be part of, I think, our negotiations at the next contract, which is coming up pretty soon already. But those are the things that, you know, other districts and people suggest, you know, they have a lot of great suggestions, and other districts have PD before school starts. The difference with that, so you can get 3 quality PD days in before school, which is great, but there's no follow-through for the rest of the year. So the idea, I think, that Newburyport has is to continually have that early release or the professional development, so the work that's being done with teachers continues, and give the teachers an opportunity to continue to refine the strategy, so.
And collaborate.
Yeah, and collaborate and do all of those things. So that's kind of where we're at with the calendar proposal. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. And
Okay.
I wondered, how did the teachers like the later start? Did they-
We had some positive feedback from
Yeah.
teachers, you know, because they're coming in and they're focused on collaboration and PD, and then the students are coming in right after. I think this is really interesting and kind of great for our teachers, is we did like a 2-hour delay. So the proposal on the calendar is they want more time to collaborate, because so that's something that we're going to look and take a look at to see, because then for those delayed openings, then it impacts lunches and things like that. So that's something that we're looking at. So that's why we had a proposal of 4, I think, late starts and 5 early releases, which is kind of satisfying both parents, and then also working with teachers to see if that works too.
You're still doing, it'd still be a 2-hour period though, right?
I think right now we have it as a 2-hour, but we might look at a 2.5 hour, but we haven't.
I still don't understand how the state thinks that it's a full day of school if there's a half day of school.
Right, well, it still counts, so.
It's one of those mysteries.
By that logic, every day is really 2 days. Every regular day is 2 days of school. You can get out of school in like February for the year.
You can make that proposal, Brian.
So anyway, so that's the kind of the how we develop that, and obviously receive input from school committee, parents, teachers, and then come up with what we think is the best plan.
I just, I don't like the early release in February or the early release in April. I think that they should be the Friday before the vacation.
Which is how it was.
What's that?
That's when we ran into really high attendance rates. When both of those were butted up to those vacations. Those were some of our highest days.
Well, people take their vacations early.
Right. Right, but that goes into our attendance data as a result of that.
Can you, I was going to say, you know, about stats, can you guys help me find that? I've actually never heard that before. That they're looking at the daily rate dipping below 95%.
Sure.
If we have that, that's.
Yeah.
It's part of the criteria during the MCAS presentation. That's one of the new criteria, that the absenteeism.
I know absenteeism, but the 95% daily absenteeism rate.
Okay.
Just without to read more about that.
There's a lot of the, I'm sorry. You can say that?
I was just going to repeat myself and say that anything we could do to stop disrupting weeks over and over again.
Right, it's 20, so I just look, it's 21 of the weeks are not full. Out of what? That's like roughly half.
I think exactly half.
Yeah.
And that's not even accounting for things like snow days or at the high school, the midterm week, which I would love to talk about as well at some point.
But this is just first reading for this anyway, right? So
Yeah, this is just.
plus, you're going to give us like 6 more versions.
I'm probably going to have to. Yeah, right.
So I just would really encourage the community, school community, parents, kids, students, to reach out to us and talk to us about these calendars, about what they, how they feel about them. So I'm happy that the pre-KK
family has been met with, because I think we all got that email. It was pretty compelling, but these are hard decisions to make, you know, a calendar for a year.
We had floated the idea last year, and we could take it up in policy at some point, of solidifying the notion that if Labor Day falls after a certain time, we go before it, or if it falls earlier, we go after it, so we don't have to debate every year the before or after Labor Day, and people can start planning.
Yeah, but the contract says it's up to it's at the superintendent's discretion. It doesn't.
And so,
I mean,
That's not what it says in the contract, is if we do start before, then we get the Friday off before Labor Day. That's pretty much what it says in the contract.
Yeah.
So if we start after, they don't necessarily get the Friday off before Labor Day?
If we start after Labor Day, it doesn't matter.
There's no Friday.
No, I mean, but they couldn't do PD Day or something beforehand, if that was the
They
case.
have one that week anyway.
I think the before and after Labor Day, I think most districts kind of adopt that, you know.
A similar thing that.
Very similar. So if it starts early, the second, third, or fourth, typically districts will go after Labor Day, and when it falls on a 5th, 6th, or 7th, they go, and it just really ties in to you know, the winter in New England, and that's, you know, so when I talked to a lot of my colleagues that are superintendents, and our language is similar language and or how they really work with their school committees and determine, you know, when everyone's back. So.
The only other piece I see here that we switched back to last year was the short first week. The year before you came, there was a lot of comments about how short that first week was. So we went to, I think that year we had 4 days. Not a full week, but 4 days at the beginning of the week. And so here we're back to a 2-day week. So I don't know if people still feel that we don't like the very short week. And there was a lot of very, we'll call it vibrant feedback about why would we have a 2-day week? Can't we move PD to the week before, or do something to lighten that week?
Well, I think once again, you're back into the contract before the week starts. Part of my entry plan and meeting with a lot of different parents, and the feedback I received was that second day, especially from the staff, the first day is a lot about mandates and signing law, as you know, policies, you know, for staff, harassment policies, all of the employee business that needs to take place as mandates. By us having that second day with the faculty going back into the building, so you're a teacher, you might have 20 new students sitting in front of you. That extra day, I think, really gave teachers an opportunity not only to work in teams, but also to really take a look at their students on 504s, IEPs. So when those new students came in front of them on that third day when the kids came back, I think the opening of school was seamless in the sense at the classroom level, because teachers felt really, really prepared with the students. And typically the old days, or you know, when you have the first day where you're really doing all your mandates and then all the kids are back the second day, I think you know, I think it's hard for some staff members to get caught up quick on, you know, learning preferences and really get to know the students. So that was the feedback that we got from staff. They really liked that second day and really focused on their class lists, on their students, and working within team levels. The other benefit of that is when you hire new staff that are part of these teams, they also have a full day of preparation with their teachers. So. But I'll go back and we'll take a look at some more. You know, we'll look at the DESE and the daily attendance. And then some of your other suggestions, that you've brought up.
Does any community ever do, let's say, 2 full days back-to-back of professional development and then have a month of none?
I think we can, I think what I would maybe suggest is, between our next meeting, I'll have time, maybe meet with the union and throw some suggestions and
Get some feedback from
get
them?
some feedback.
Because it's a constant theme that we say every year is that there's so many weeks that are disrupted. And certainly, I think we all recognize the importance of professional development, especially the skill, based training that the teachers are working on now. It's really important, especially with, things that change and new unfunded mandates and et cetera, But it would be nice to have more than 21 weeks that are contiguous in terms of project.
Yeah, so let me go back, let me touch base with union membership and take a look at that.
I think Pentucket does a bunch before
I work with a
school
lot of
starts.
districts that don't have half days. They do their PD at the front of the year.
That's it?
That's it.
Well, I don't think that's a good approach either.
Well, I'm not saying that's the answer, but I'm saying a lot of districts are kind of.
Right.
And then the other side, Ipswich has every Wednesday's a half day, right?
Same as Reading.
Right.
Wellesley, Reading.
Okay, so
Malden.
there has to, yes.
Yes, and I was just going to add that through the most recent work we just did with Billy Donegan, her response was, you don't have enough collaboration time in your schedules yet to be able to do this well. So I think, there's another perspective around it too, that the ultimate goal is that the collaboration time for the teachers is going to lead to higher quality instruction in the classroom. And so if that means some interactions to have higher quality when the students are there, then that's a trade-off too. So I just wanted to throw that perspective on the table.
I used to work in a district where, especially for the November and December months, because there's 2 early releases. The ones before the holiday obviously aren't used for PD, they're just an early release. But we used to flex the time in that month for the professional development day. So understanding that there is some time that teachers would be working on their projects, they could put that time as a team, the cohort, in whenever they wanted, come up with the accountability product, like you call it standards-based professional development. So instead of a sit and get where they had to be there for those particular hours, they could put that time whenever. If they so wanted to come the day before Thanksgiving and do it then, the school is closed, they're more than welcome to be there. If they didn't, they could do it at another time at their leisure, but we didn't need to have 2 early release days in the same month because of that.
That's something to look at too.
It just kind of said to teachers, we trust you to, you have a product to come up with.
Okay.
The time is yours.
Moving on.
Okay. We have a district fundraising discussion on the agenda, and it's a discussion that we actually started at policy. And I think that before we sort of really get into the discussion, I have a couple of suggestions that are based on feedback we've gotten from the community. Historically, the shifting of funding for cultural and enrichment occurred around, what was it, around 2007, Steve, when we got really slammed?
9C cuts.
Yeah. And all of our funding, that was the point at which we started doing bus costs and athletics costs. We got hit so badly with the cuts that the PTOs stepped up to do that funding. We haven't really revisited that, and people are asking us to revisit whether the schools whether our operational budget can pick up some of that. So I think one of the things I would ask as part of this conversation is that we ask the superintendent to get the costs for each school and at least make that part of the conversation, the budget conversation, to see whether that is possible to add it to the budget. to see whether we can begin to pick up some of those costs again.
How much money is actually being fundraised in all of our schools combined?
Yeah, I'd like to see that for everything.
For each school.
For each school, like.
And then how much is fundraised, because buses are expensive. And I know a lot of at least you see the students walking a lot, which is fine too, but if they want to go outside the city. So we just need to know how many of those trips occur that require bus rentals, and then per school, what they're using, how much they're fundraising to do these types of activities, and if it's outside of field trips, what are the other costs that they're fundraising?
So for the PTO, I could have them give us a breakdown of where the funding's going.
How did the field trip?
But you want more than PTO, am I understanding that right?
Well, I want it separated. I'd like to know what the PTO is doing, and then I'd like to know, is there other fundraising happening in this? The boosters and other groups too, and what are some of the policies, are there, like, does the boosters have a policy about what they can and cannot do in terms of fundraising? And any other groups? I know you listen to all of these international trips that are happening.
Right.
Every one of them talk about they've done some fundraising. So what are those? I know a lot of them are, restaurant will donate a percentage of sales that night, but we just don't have a
International Club. Fundraiser for this and fundraiser for that.
We don't have a comprehensive list of all the fundraising that is happening for the schools. And I think we need to look at that, so that we can begin to figure out if there's other things we can do to help this situation.
So I just want to clarify that we're looking for all of the small pieces of fundraising that go in to help support extended programming, but we're not looking at like our fundraising arm like the NEF.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, the NEF is pretty cut and dry as far as what they do. I feel like it's just, we don't know about anything else.
Right, because NEF comes and sets their priorities, works with you on what they're going to fund over, they have a big board meeting and present what they're going to fund, but we don't necessarily know all of these activities that are occurring.
Right, because you're gonna, it's all the different clubs that the sports. Not only just the athletics, I'm talking the clubs, so there's.
Well, if a new policy is going to be established, we need to know all this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Clubs, sports,
But
the discussion.
Has there been any guidelines to be recording this? Or is this all going to be, exploration and finding out information for the first time? Because if it is, that's going to be a lot of work. If you're going to be tracking down how many buckets of cookie dough each girls softball player had to sell last year or the year before, that's not going to be easy to do.
Well, I don't think we need that level of detail.
But that's.
But the fact that they do one and they raise this for X.
Right. If you're talking about concerns about exploiting students to raise this money for largely the benefit of the for-profit company, it is a problem.
Yeah. And I would agree that, because while this might be the driving piece of the conversation, it also does bring up, and we've started to talk about this, athletic fees in the past, like JV teams paying the same as varsity teams, but playing half the games.
Okay, that's a totally separate issue.
But it isn't.
It is, David.
Okay, Donna, hold on a second. Donna, I'm telling you.
Mayor, please.
Sorry. Mayor, I'm telling you that the parents writing the checks, it's the same issue. They are being asked for money. They are being asked for money for things that their kids participate in, but the money is not going to their kids. So it's the same issue. Okay?
Yeah, that's the same issue.
Okay. Well, everybody else thinks it's the same issue. And so the question of when we are asking parents for money for sports, when we're asking money to pay for sports tickets, when we're asking money for, there are classes at the high school where the kids have to pay lab fees, I think they're called. So, right? And so the question is, how much money are we asking parents for is part of this discussion. I think the idea that people found out that 50% of the money we're raising went to a for-profit company, kind of tip the scale and really upset people, but people have been asking us to deal with some of these post-tax funding issues for years now. Whether it's for girls' sports or the hockey team or the JV versus varsity teams or the ticket sales or all these other things. I mean, the boys, and you know, just like the boys basketball team just raised $14,000. I don't know why. And people are just curious as to why we're raising so much money. And when the tagline of something like that says to have a strong and successful program, I try to figure out, well, what are we not giving our kids that they might need to have that strong and successful program? So I think at some level, all of this is connected.
I agree with you, but I think the policy issue is that athletic fees are very separate than fundraising. That's different. There might be an overlap there, but I think we really need to drill down on what's happening with fundraising if we want, and then I think there's still another discussion that needs to happen about athletic fees and what we're charging. Right. And I think that they're parallel, but I think that they're separate in terms of what would be developed in terms of policy.
I think the other thing is that we know we have control over the athletic fees we set because it's part of our budget process. Right. It's still very unclear to me, and one of the things we came up with in policy is talking to our lawyer about what do we make policy about, what is actually within our purview. We don't have that answer. We should. It's going to be part of the conversation. But athletic fees are something that we periodically take up and struggle with because it's an issue and it's time again to do it. I don't have any problem with that. But that is something we can control. This other thing, we need to approach on a bunch of different tracks. One of them is, the 3 questions that we've developed to go to our attorney. I think is going to be really helpful. And the questions that we came up with was, what is our relationship with fundraising from outside the district? Relationship meaning, do we set criteria? Do we offer guidelines? Do we have the ability to tell somebody else who's loosely affiliated with the school how they can raise money? Or do we offer guidelines such as if A, B, and C is happening in your fundraising, we take the option not to accept the money. I don't know. That is a conversation I think we ought to try. Does the school committee have the purview to set policy around fundraising or only guidelines? And then what are the criteria that we have? What needs to be part of fundraising? What shouldn't be part of fundraising? Our policies, we have several policies that touch on this, but I think we need an overarching policy. I think we need a conversation about what that policy should be, and I think we need some legal guidance as to where we stand with making that policy. I think that's emerged really clearly in what's happened over the last week and a half, with this fundraiser. This particular fundraiser, as I just found out today, there are actually levels at which you plug in and you make a choice to, and the amount of money that the district keeps or sends to the nonprofit is literally based on participation of parents. And that you can choose to work with this curriculum and this fundraiser and get their equipment and work out an arrangement where you get 85% of the profits, depending on how much support you put into it. So that's a piece of the conversation that we haven't talked about. The amount of money that's going there is based on the support we're asking them to give us because we don't provide that support internally. But there's a range of options. There's at least 4 options. I think Sean brought some of the documentation here. So I'm not advocating for that, but I'm simply saying that it's not so cut and dry that we shouldn't be doing this, we should. There are other options that we can choose. And from my conversations, I know from Sean's conversations with other superintendents that are doing this, and some of the PTO members as well, it's not just in Newburyport that volunteerism has kind of started to fall off. It's been falling off everywhere for years. So it reaches a critical mass and you don't have the people to do this. Now, you know, the larger question again is how much fundraising should we actually be expecting? You know, to bring cultural enrichment back, to bring, you know, artists in residence, to bring buses for field trips. I don't know, that's information that we need to get. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't $35,000.
Because parents are still paying for buses. Like, I don't remember any free field trips my kids have been on. So they might be subsidizing some field trips, I just don't know.
Right.
I also want to make sure that anybody who's listening, and maybe even in the audience, knows we fully and deeply appreciate the PTO and all of the fundraising work. And we know that it's brutal, early morning Saturdays, often thankless, obscure. So I don't want anybody to take or mistake our quest for clarity to be a lack of thanks.
Well, thank you, David.
And I would also want to say that,
important.
you know, something that came clear to me when reading through the policy is that currently our principals and even our superintendent are burdened with figuring all this stuff out, and I'd rather they work with instruction and social emotional needs of kids than high glossy presentations from fundraising schemes. So if we can have any way we can shift the weight, this piece off them, I think your office is busy enough, your office is busy enough, and the principal's offices are all busy enough that I would love to be able to fix this.
Yeah, I think
somehow.
I think going forward we have several tracks of conversations to have.
Right, and I agree. I think school committee, take a look, you know, we'll provide more information, take a look at the governing policy around fundraising. But on the other side is, I think, you know, the work of both parents. We hear the parents' concerns that came to our attention, and then also the PTO, as you said, Dave, really fundraising, and it just, you know, as one parent said, I'm just a parent trying to help out, and I think we're, some people out in our community, I don't know who, but maybe might be vilifying these parents that are looking to help out, and it's really, I think, bringing the parents that have concerns with the parents that are helping out, bring them together, and to really develop a true community, because you're really talking about a fundraiser and you're looking at the expenses. That's the issue. It's almost like bringing the high school students in that do the constructive dialogue to, you know, come up with the issue, come up with the questions. But, you know, as part of the feedback, and if you go to page 5 on this, and this is maybe something that the parents working together did not look at, but and as part of this fundraiser, there's also curriculum development and tied into PBIS. But if you look for the past few days, you know, touching base with other superintendents in the area, if you look at the company and you go up to the top where it says Boostathon Live, for example, booster involvement, school involvement, all right? So I think back 3 years ago, we might have had 3 to 5 PTO parents that were looking to do a fundraiser. So the company provides all of this support, and that's where it says profit up 65% and 55% goes back to the school. The second level is booster involvement, where if we got more parents to come to the table to work with this program, it's 75%, estimated 65%. They still get the character development curriculum. The third option is profit up to 85%. So what ends up happening is there's less involvement from the company, more involvement with the school involvement. And the last one, and I believe North Reading does this, where they have a lot of the parents in support, where 90% of what's being raised goes right into the school, and then 10% goes to the company. So I think that this is, as parents, as I was listening, you know, to the two sides, I think it's really coming together, finding a fundraiser that everyone can agree, like, this makes a lot of sense. So I think those are the two issues, and I think working with Principal Sullivan and the administration and these great parents that are volunteering and some of the parents that have concerns that want to help out, I think it's bringing people to the table and having these conversations at the school level. At the meantime, school committee looking at policy, looking at the fundraising as part of a budget process, I think makes sense. So I kind of want to just, put that out there because, and the PTO would be, the next school committee would be glad to come forward and if you have questions for them. But we'll work on our end on developing getting information. And as you said, Vice Chair Menon, working with Michelle, our legal counsel, and we've already sent this policy back to her. And she's investigating other districts and some of the guidelines that they've set up around fundraising as a school committee. So.
And take the time you need to collect the data, because I think, here we are, we're in February, so
right.
I mean, if it takes us through, several months to be able to resolve this and prepare for, going forward in the next school year, then that's fine, especially since this fundraiser is complete. And hopefully there isn't another one like this that's scheduled to happen.
So,
Amy?
No.
No? Another fundraiser like this scheduled to happen in the school? Okay.
Like booster one?
Yeah.
No, we have not signed anything.
Okay. So we have time to, I think to do a really good job in terms of collecting the data, discovering, what it is that, we might be able to pick up in the budget this year. So thank you. And thank you for all who brought this to our attention. And again, I just would like to repeat what Mr. Hochheiser said, how much we value the work of the PTO. And sometimes you just don't have the resources around, so you go for something like this to do.
Do you have a grant writer?
The city does.
The city does.
Do we?
No.
Okay, I know just on School Spring, it seems to be something that a lot of, I don't know about public districts, but a lot of places are starting to realize that funding is an issue. And sometimes grant writing, which takes an enormous amount of time and skill, could be worth its weight.
When grants do come through that are appropriate for the schools, we've worked with the
I know, I'm
schools.
just saying, I'd like to have somebody special at the school that, if there's a stipend, to see if somebody would be willing to take that on, or
Someone look into. Yeah.
spend their summers doing.
So are we clear on sort of where we're going with this right now?
Yes.
Sounds like the lawyer's gonna come in?
Lawyers
To this or
probably
to
gonna come
policy?
in. Excuse me?
Is the lawyer gonna come here or to policy?
I think we're asking the lawyer to come in to do a training anyway for all of us. So we can raise some of these questions then. We could also do a phone call with her at a policy meeting, I think.
Yeah, and as I said, sent the policy to our attorney and then also gave her some questions in the sense of, some of the questions that we have moving forward. So she has our policy, is looking at other districts that had similar questions regarding fundraising, and we'll develop some
And the
guidelines.
basic fundamental questions she will have within a day or so that we came up in policy, which I think are sort of the baseline questions. What's our role? Okay? We are now at the Assistant Superintendent's report.
I'm going to talk to you briefly about a couple of things that we have going on to expand student opportunities. And the first one I've brought up here before, which is the seal of biliteracy. And in your packets, you have the letter that went home to families of juniors and seniors this year. We also talked with the newspaper about doing a press release around this. So this spring will be the first time that we're going to make the test available for our students to work towards a seal of biliteracy, which is really exciting. So that will happen in the spring. We're offering it to juniors and seniors. We're offering it to students who may not be native English speakers, as well as our students who are studying a second language. So The criteria is on the chart that I gave you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about that, but we're really excited about that. It's one more step towards bridging both English language learner programming and world language as second language programming in our district.
Quick question, is this test something that upper language classes are helping prepare kids for?
What they're learning in their class builds their proficiency. This is a proficiency test.
I know,
around.
we all know that we practice for proficiency tests.
We're not practicing for this test. No.
I guess that's
It's not, I think that's what we're working towards in our instruction. And to earn the seal of biliteracy, a student needs to be at least an intermediate to advanced level of their proficiency in 4 domains of the language. So it really has to be something that's internalized. It's not something that you can just prepare for an exam around. So this exam, they'll be tested on, speaking, reading, writing, and listening.
Like the access testing, just bumped up a couple notches.
Yes. And we're going to use the stamp exam. We're going to start using it for placement testing as well from middle school to high school in our languages. So they'll at least have some familiarity with the format of the testing. It'll be used at a different level than what it would be for the proficiency levels for seal of biliteracy.
So kids going from 8th to 9th grade are going to take a lower level of the stamp test?
They are this spring.
And this spring. And then, so the courses are then geared towards this, what's on this test?
No, what this test is testing is their proficiency level of a language.
I understand that.
So the courses are geared towards helping our students become proficient in the language.
When I say that, Spanish 2 would start at a level of proficiency that the test would approve them
Yes,
for.
yes.
Geared towards the proficiency on the test.
Got it.
And we would hope that 8th grade Spanish would bring them to a level of proficiency.
Yes.
So that,
And it would be made available to any of our high school freshmen who have not had a world language coming into high school to see where we should place them.
does it come with the curriculum?
No, it does not.
Okay, so it's, the teachers are working with the consultant from Salem State to align?
Yes.
Great.
Yep, and it's aligned to the national standards
Perfect.
for world language, and that's what we're aligning our curriculum to as well.
Great.
Any other questions about seal of biliteracy? And then
Step in the right direction. It's very exciting. And I think
Isn't it exciting?
We'll see how the first batch of a group of our students do, and that's right, sort of regroup if we need to add a little.
Well, and we don't expect that we're going to have hundreds of students, reaching seal of biliteracy, particularly with how our world language program, the status of our world language program. We're working to make it more robust. We're working to continue to build it after we had to reduce what we had for offerings for world language.
How high does our, it would be Spanish right now, how high does our Spanish offering go? Do we have like AP Spanish?
Yep, and we have a Spanish 4.
Oh, and how many kids are in that?
I was in that class last week, about 9.
9 kids are in Spanish 4? There are fewer kids in AP Spanish?
I don't know the numbers for that. I don't think I can tell you the numbers right off the top.
Maybe more than 9.
Right. So I don't know off the top of my head for the AP Spanish. But you have to remember, this test is available, or the opportunity for seal of biliteracy is available to students who have acquired language outside of our school as well. So it's not only available for the languages that are being taught in district. And then several of us had the opportunity last week to be part of a webinar with Edgenuity. And Edgenuity is an online platform for, and it can be used, the curriculum in Edgenuity and the classes in Edgenuity could be used for credit recovery. It could be used for enrichment classes. It could be used for intervention. One of the things that we discussed was how to use it possibly as an alternative for families who are considering homeschooling at the high school level, which is always a challenge in making sure that those students are receiving the rigor in their curriculum that they should be having at a high school level and preparing for whatever is going to be next after high school. And so it was very interesting. There's a lot of options within this that we think we could experiment with. We might be able to offer some opportunities to students that they don't currently have available to them at our high school in a virtual way. So I've recently met with a family that was interested in a homeschool plan, and we discussed this as a pilot. So we're going to give this a try here in just a few weeks with that family. I think it will be a nice alternative. We're working with the company. It's going to give us an opportunity to try out the platform, get some feedback from one of our students. The student was very interested in providing feedback about the programming and how it works. This keeps the student enrolled in our high school. Students who use this virtual program can still earn a diploma through Newburyport Public Schools. So it's just another avenue. It wouldn't be something that would replace the current curriculum that we have. It would offer some alternatives.
The other piece with this, the reason why we started to look at this is looking at special ed and giving opportunities for credit recovery and students that are struggling and developing an after-school program. Similar, we used to utilize a grad point, but Ingenuity has a lot of, as Angela said, the more we learn from them, a lot more opportunities. So not only can we utilize it, I think, we're going to start very slow and pilot at a very small rate, but I'm looking at developing special education, individualized learning platforms for students that might have anxiety or depression, that school phobia in the sense where they can't complete a full day. So this would be online opportunities for them. In addition to, it's also students, we're talking about taking a look at advanced coursework. So this, almost like the idea of you can set up a credit recovery program, but maybe we set up an advanced studies program. So then you have on the flip side, where if a student, wants to take Chinese or Mandarin, or maybe it's a student that has engineering and wants to take more engineering electives. So I think when Angela and I, originally we wanted to start off small, but then we started seeing the great opportunities that this may offer. Also specific interventions. And there's other school systems that are utilizing this in various ways. So I think it's just gonna open the door for a lot of the things that we want to do, I think, down the road. But we're gonna take small steps and experiment.
Virtual high school?
Right now, we have virtual high school.
I know, but
it's similar. It's a similar.
Replace it?
I think eventually it may. It may.
Is it comparable in cost?
Yes. It's actually a little bit less. So, but it's something down the road.
It
we're looking
depends.
at.
This has multiple levels to what you can subscribe to. So you can subscribe to something that a student's going to work pretty independent on. The company does require that you assign a coach in-house that will work with the student, because any virtual program is only as good as the kind of facilitation that's coming along with it. But this goes as far as also offering a teacher, a certified teacher. They have virtual teachers who are teaching the classes, and they have tutorial support 6 days a week at certain levels from 8 to 11 p.m. And they have office hours with a teacher that you can have conferencing with. So there's various levels of supports that can accompany the levels that you subscribe to. So it all depends on how you're going to use it. With the homeschooling student that we're going to try it with, we're going with the virtual teacher. I mean, with the teacher, the office hours, with the teachers and the tutor availability, because we want them to have a like experience to being in school. So I do think it's got possibilities. We use other virtual programs in the school now, And there are about 4 different virtual programs that we use for credit recovery, for virtual high school courses, for a variety of things. But it would be kind of nice if we could find a platform that encapsulates it all and offers a variety of opportunities.
Great, thank you.
So is it a subscription model, but then you can add different, depending on what the level of supports are, that would be the added cost?
It's not a subscription, you pay per seat.
Per seat.
Per student seat, yeah.
Is that seat per year?
No, per class.
Per class,
Mhm.
per student.
Per
class.
course, yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Superintendent's report. All right. You're gonna earn your dollar tonight.
Oh, man, I've given up.
So I just wanted to clarify, so I sent out just bullet points, because I know our last meeting, we talked about the strategic plan, and kind of where we're at, and so as part of tonight's meeting, I just gave a quick overview on bullet points, but I'm working on a comprehensive report, just so you know, there's, with the strategic plan and all the individual action steps, I think the report's like 43 pages long. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at every action step that was created for every strategy and really update within every action step. The good news, I think with a lot of the work that the district did before I got here and then some of the work that we're doing now, I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised on a lot of the work that we've done. So, but for tonight, I just wanted to, I don't want to go through every single bullet point, but I really wanted to highlight some of the different areas that we've worked on throughout the last 18 months, and talking about just some, I think, accomplishments that are tied to that strategic plan was the implementation of, obviously, the late start. That's in there in many of the different action steps when you look at the 43-page report. I think the development of personal relationships throughout the community, which was evident, I believe, in negotiating the contracts and developing a great relationship with the teachers union and all 3 unions, but also I think the success of having our teacher leadership back this year has already paid off in dividends and a lot of the curriculum work that we're doing. The skills-based work that we're doing with Billy Donegan in the action strategic plan and the action steps, that was highlighted throughout, where the district wanted to send people out to look at skills-based districts, but I think what we've done, we brought in the skills-based expert that's working with us to develop true model units, and I think that's is a wonderful thing. We have a variety of dual enrollment programs that are already in place, working with Middlesex, and then also the GOMI and the work that Erin Hobbs is doing with that survey station funded by the NEF. There's going to be opportunity for students to get dual enrollment through that. And then we added the Endicott dual enrollment opportunity for students. And that's why, going back to Ingenuity, I started to, obviously, I think we have unbelievable programs in place for our students that are struggling, and I'm very proud of those, but maybe start taking a look at advanced coursework and more of a flexible arrangement. And Ingenuity might fit with that, but also having Endicott piloting. Right now, we have 12 students signed up, and we've only advertised it for a couple weeks. The sign-up deadline is going to be Thursday is the first class, sociology class. I'm really proud of the student leadership and the student voice efforts that have been made throughout the district, which also ties in with a lot of those action steps in the strategic plan. And that's the ADL, the World of Difference, the student councils, the Clipper crews, and not just titles of kids just meeting. We have students facilitating constructive dialogue. The high school students facilitated the balance out. The high school students also coming down and facilitating curriculum conversations with the students and teachers at the Knox Middle School. So we're utilizing that skill where the students are actually not only at the table, but really having say on how we're educating them, and I think that's great. I think the development of the cultural awareness, and I think the work that we're putting in place with the One World Sister School in Somalia, and that work that's, we're piloting that. We're the only United States school that I think is working with the Somalian schools over there, which is pretty extraordinary. And that's all through Dave Fortier, who we all met through the Peace Awards last year. And so we're connecting with those schools. I think we're taking a harder look at the World Language Program and the work that Dr. Schreff's doing with us. And then also trying to add languages at the middle school, which is, I think, moving in the right direction. And then all the success of the Sailbot team, the design team, Model UN. I could go on and on of all those real world experiences. And then Galapagos today. You have 59 students who are going to be with Erin Hobbs and some of our best teachers, in a whole nother country. So, and then the success of the athletic program and boys cross country. So, as part of all of that, this is, the many bullet points that I have in here are some of I think the work tied to the strategic plan and the community that's kind of really given us a focus in those 7 areas. And my goal for us, or for me, is to really provide a comprehensive report and provide you all of those action steps that were created in detail and give you a detailed report. And then the idea for the community is kind of give an overview of where we're at and where we want to start to move towards. So that's the superintendent's report. I just kind of wanted to summarize all of that for everybody. But it's to be continued in the sense of, obviously, we want to get through our budget season for the next few weeks, and then I'll start compiling a strategic plan where we're at, and then how we're going to move forward.
Right, so once we get the plan, we review it, we'll do a public presentation.
Correct.
Then we will discuss the process of
Next
revising the
steps.
plan.
Correct.
Any questions? None? Subcommittee reports. Joint Ed and Policy have met.
Joint Ed met today. It was a good first meeting. Superintendent went through kind of the budget process with them. They had a lot of good questions, and then he also had an MCAS presentation. We talked a little bit about the CIP plan, just a little bit, but it was mainly focused around budget and MCAS. So then we have 2 new members on the Education Committee. Barry wasn't here, but Counselor Z was here tonight.
Policy?
We met on Saturday, really just to start wrapping our heads around what we intend to do and what we think has to be done, what's a good idea to look at, which started off by thinking of some questions to figure out, just get our feet under ourselves. The whole fundraising thing kind of came at us far earlier than we're, so the idea of drafting questions was a good start. We're going to try to meet the opposite Monday of Education Committee, so the second meeting of the month, 5:30 here, just so everybody knows.
Hopefully in a room upstairs.
Yes, we were thinking that it might not be the best idea. People are always welcome to policy because it's a public meeting, but casual eavesdroppers coming in for the early in for the meeting might not be the best crowd. So we wouldn't sit in this room and have the meeting, but we would be here.
They wouldn't let you have this room for such a small meeting anyway.
What's that?
They wouldn't let you have this room for such a small meeting.
No.
I don't know who's here at 5:30 to keep us from that, but.
Yeah, but we were waiting to.
Yeah, I know.
There could be other people having this room.
There could be.
Well, I mean,
Well,
it's
it's
gonna
a
be
school
right
committee.
before our meeting, so
Right
the
before
school
school
meeting room will be already set up for our meeting.
Oh, on the
Like joint ed.
second one.
Second
Oh,
one,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I thought you were saying you were going to
Before
meet
joint
the
ed.
alternate school
No,
committee
the
night.
other,
So,
the
gotcha.
opposite.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah, that should be
Yeah,
fun.
so maybe back there. or
Yeah, no,
something.
we figured it was just right back there.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
And then we talked about, there are some things in the policy book that we might need to update. We found a couple things in the first few sections that, just things to review.
And we just got an update from NASC, just the other day, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's updates from Mask about, you know, process in our meetings and all sorts of other things to start considering. So we'll have a full agenda.
Okay. We're, I don't
We need
know
to
the
adjourn the
protocol. We
business
have to adjourn this
meeting.
meeting.
But before we do that, I just wanted to remind everyone that on Thursday night here at 7 o'clock is my State of the City address. So certainly invite all of you. I'm sure you all got invitations. We'd love to see you here for the State of the City. And now, if there isn't anything else, would
We have
like
a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn the business meeting.
Can I just ask one thing? Sean, have you been sworn in?
I have.
So I'd like to congratulate Sean for another term.
Oh, wait, no, I did.
Okay. now we
Thank
can-
you.
I second the motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to open the organizational meeting for the school committee for this coming term.
So moved. Second? Sugar, second?
To open the organizational meeting for this coming school committee term. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so if you look at your agenda on the bottom under the organizational meeting agenda, our first task is to vote for a vice chair. So I would like to open up nominations for the vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Sean Reed.
Is there a second?
Second.
I would like to nominate Bruce Benning. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further
Can we back up a little? I lost.
That's okay, so we had the organization,
Sean Reardon.
and it was seconded by Dave. I nominated Bruce Menon, and it was seconded by Mr. Cole. Are there any further nominations at this point? I will close the nominations and open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, then...
Do we normally have a discussion about that?
You can.
I'm just thinking like how city council works. They just go in the circle and say, go, go, go. So, I guess I'll discuss a little bit. It's never personal. I just like to have everybody have a chance doing something. Bruce done a good job for 2 years, and I think Sean will do a good job too. So I want to open it up.
I too think Bruce has done a great job the last 2 years. I think it's nice to have choices and have new people in different roles, and so that's why I was glad I was nominated by Brian.
Thank you. Bruce has been probably the longest serving. I'm not sure if it's you or Steve who has the most years of serving on the school committee and working with many superintendents. But I'm not sure all of you are aware that Bruce was ready to walk away and not run again. And in meeting with the superintendent, he asked him specifically. He felt that his institutional knowledge was really important, and asked that he please do one more year as the vice chair with him as he really begins to solidify his leadership role as superintendent in the schools. And I'm honoring the request of the superintendent and the fact that Bruce sort of reluctantly, initially I think, moved forward to run again for another term, and I'm very grateful that he did. And so that is why I am supporting Mr. Bennett. Any further discussion? So this is a voice vote. Mrs. Kennedy? State your name when your name, state, not your name, the name of who you are selecting for vice chair, when your name is called.
All right. Let's see. Mr. Cole,
Bruce M. Menon.
Mayor Holliday,
Bruce M. Menon.
Mr. Hawkeiser,
Sean Reardon.
Mr. Callahan,
Sean Reardon.
Mr. Reardon,
Sean Reardon.
and Mr. Menon,
Bruce Menon.
and Mr. 1, 2, 3, right here. Who did I miss?
Sheila.
Sheila.
Sheila, I'm sorry, Sheila.
Bruce Menon.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. 4 for Mr. Menon and 3 for Mr. Reardon.
Thank you all.
Congratulations, Bruce.
Thank you.
Bruce Menon will be serving as our vice chair for the next year. So congratulations, and thank you, Sean. Thank you, committee members who supported Sean, and I'm looking forward to another really productive year on the school committee. So before we move into talking about norms and those documents that we do need to approve at the start of each year, I just wanted to be sure that as this is the organizational committee, and this should get into formal notes, Mrs. Kennedy, finance, our subcommittees need to be part of this organizational review. So these are the appointments. I can give them to you if that's easier, so you don't have to write down all this.
Yeah.
Finance, the chair is Steve Cole, with Bruce Menon, Brian Callahan, and myself. Any concerns about finance? Everything okay with that? All right. Policy, the chair will be David Hawkeiser with Sean Reardon and Sheila Spalding. Everybody okay with that? Joint Ed, the chair is Sean Reardon, Bruce Menon, and Brian Callahan. Superintendent evaluation would be Bruce Menon and Mayor Holliday, certainly with input from all of us, as you know. And the NEF liaison is Sean Reardon. Did I get that? I had that wrong before, right?
You didn't have it at all before.
Oh, so that was an oversight. So Sean Reardon will be our liaison to the NEF, and our special ed, even though I know our superintendent has been doing a lot of work with that, would like you to be sort of our school committee liaison to that. And are we missing anything else in terms of school committee responsibilities?
Could you just repeat the policy numbers again?
Of course. Chair is David Hawkeiser,
Yep.
Sean Reardon,
Yep.
and Sheila Spalding.
Okay, thank you.
The collaborative, you're going to those meetings now, so there isn't a need for a school committee, because I know you had that for a long time, Mr. Cole, so we're okay with that?
Unless Steve wants it back.
No.
Don't answer so quickly, Steve. So we're covered in all areas at this point? Nothing more outstanding? Okay.
Notice how I skated on it? I did it for 2 years. Nobody ever mentioned it.
Okay, so the next we have to do is approve our
Here they are.
operating principles, norms of interaction, and Mass State ethics. So essentially, all we are doing, unless there are any concerns about the these operating principles, norms of interactions, or state ethics, speak now or forever hold your peace. Yes.
I wouldn't call it a concern, but be prepared for meetings. And I've said
Yes.
this the last 2 times I've had to sign these documents. We still don't get the agenda early enough. This time we got it Thursday night at like 7 something. I appreciate you guys are super busy, so I'm not trying to dog on you. But the mask thing says 3 days with supporting documents.
Okay.
I felt very unprepared for Angela's thing. Like, I had no idea what she was talking about most of the time. So I don't like that. I have to have it. I'd like it a week before, but if we can do 3 days, that'd be awesome. Please.
Okay. Anything else?
Just a comment. The operating principles and the norms of interaction were developed at a retreat by this school committee itself.
Yeah.
And the code of ethics is, I think, taken straight from MASC.
And I think it's important, not that, I remember one school committee meeting years ago when we sat down and read aloud each of these statements, which I really don't think we need to do. But I think that these were developed with a lot of thought, and I think it's important that you read them and that we all adhere to these policies. So without any further comments, then we will pass. Please come to this section of the table and before you depart and sign your name. And at that, I think we can take a motion to close the organizational meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I did.
No.
Oh, really?
You were gonna, that you had planned on calling.
Yeah, because I touched base with those parents.
Right, remember I said you want me to get back in touch with them, I'll take it from
Wow.
And I.
Well, she stayed here.
Well, she
I was
should-
never calling.
She should have, I said that, I was fine, I said, "Can you not be there?" Well, I hope you want to be there because I was.
No, tell her she gets a big thumbs up.
Okay.
Yeah. I just didn't want, like, you know what I mean? I didn't want squares.
So next year, Sean.
I was gonna end this. Yeah, I don't I think she just wanted to be here for one of her there.
Oh, yes, here.
What's going on?